On the day of the Hinatsuki tragedy, Rokuro was 12 years old. He was surrounded by fire, and the smell of ash was strong in the air. Rokuro was on the ground, alone and in pain. He screamed as he stood over his friends' bodies, apologizing to them. The Hinatsuki tragedy was a life-changing event for Rokuro. He lost everything that day: his friends, his home, and his innocence. Rokuro, who is now a 14-year-old teenager, spends his time chasing girls and being rejected by them. The Seika dormitory, an old man named Zenkichi Atomi is staring at a moving spoon, a compass that detects kegare. He gets interrupted by Ryogo Nagatsuji. Ryogo goes to exorcise these kegare with Atsushi and Shinosuke's help. Ryogo asks Rokuro to help, but he refuses to get involved in kegare exorcism and runs away. In Magano, Benio jumps down and activates a defense called Vajra Talisman, Iron Cliff Wall. The kegare flies and takes her, but she does not sustain any damage. To free herself, Benio uses another talisman, Might Talisman, Polarizing Lion's Strength, to cover her swords in flames and defeat the kegare. The spell drained all her energy and she falls from the sky, appear in front of Rokuro standing in a bridge. He decides to help her. Rokuro takes her to her destination and suddenly everything around them becomes dark. They hear a kegare laughing while taking some kids to Megano. Benio opens the gate to save them. Rokuro finds himself in a battle he didn't ask for. The kegare wants to eat the two kids, but Benio cut its head off and stops it. Suddenly, another kegare appears. Benio casts multiple enchantments at once, making her super fast. She destroys all of the kegare with one hit from her swords. She then uses another talisman to heal one of the kids. Things got quiet for a moment. Rokuro talks to Benio, but they gets interrupted by a kegare that looks like a big spider. Benio tries to attack it with her swords, but she is no match for it. Rokuro is shocked after hearing Benio's words. She dreams of a world without kegare, so she will exorcise all of them and defeat evil. A promise he made years ago to Ryogo before that incident made him give it up. While Rokuro is lost in his thoughts while Benio goes to attack that huge kegare with her swords. Unfortunately, all she manages to do is to create a small hole in its solid body. Then she uses Ephemeral Lotus Dance. That creates a huge amount of attacks to no effect. As Benio's last move, she hits the kegare at the center of its stomach. She has lost all her enchantments and Rokuro appears in front of her. He uses a black talisman and a red armor appears on his right arm. He attacks and destroys the kegare with one hit. Benio starts to live with Rokuro in the Seika dormitory. Chief Exorcist Tsuchimikado Arima, who is the head of all exorcists, visits the Seika dorm. He gives his order to assemble the exorcist leadership. They will meet in the Five-Mirror Chamber. In this assembly, he announces that the Miko, the child of the gods, is coming. The chief calls Benio and Rokuro forward and orders them to fight each other. Benio accepts because she wants to test her power against Rokuro. She attacks him with all she has, but he holds back, doing nothing but dodging her attacks. Arima provokes Rokuro by telling him that his friends who died in that tragedy 2 years ago were weak. Blinded by anger, he takes the black talisman and the armor in his hand appears. He tries to attack Arima, but Benio stops him. With one hit, he throws her against the wall. The challenge continues, and Rokuro, enraged, throws flames at Benio. He uses the air fissure bullet technique to turn normal rocks into bullets covered with his spell power. Benio feels weak, but she cannot forget her parents' deaths and all the promises she made to them. Such feelings boost her powers, making improving her speed. She attacks Rokuro from different angles, and he tries to predict the next attack, but she's too fast. The only thing he can do is to use arm as a shield. Finally, he anticipates her move. Benio charges forward at full speed, giving Rokuro the right moment to hit back. The chief steps in and stops the fight before they can hit each other. He announces that Rokuro and Benio are the twin star exorcists. In simple words, they will get married and have a baby, and that baby will be the Miko. Both Benio and Rokuro refuse this deal of marrying each other. The chief exorcist breaks the news about the twin stars to the 12 guardians. Fighting kegare every day is unusual. So, the chief exorcist orders one of the 12 guardians, Shimon Ikaruga, to investigate the high appearance rate in Japan, especially in Narukami where Rokuro and Benio reside. Rokuro gets distracted and almost gets eaten by a kegare, but Ikaruga manages to save him in time. More kegare appear, forcing Ikaruga to use a talisman, Guardian Master Talisman, Vermilion Wing, making his sword huge. With his sword fixed in the soil, Ikaruga uses a technique that makes a big hole in the ground while setting all kegares on fire. Benio explains to the rest that the 12 guardians are people chosen for their superior skills in everything, and Ikaruga holds the title of Suzaku, the Vermilion Bird. Arima gives his villa to Rokuro and Benio to live there. after going through a test that helped them work better as a team. Mayura leaves the villa after visiting Rokuro and Benio, and she walks back home. Something strange happens. The ghost of a child is following her. Back in the villa, Benio found a good luck charm of Mayura and instructs Rokuro to give it back to her. She tells him that the charm is used to hide the spell power. This way she cannot be detected by the Kegare. Mayura ends up being dragged to Magano after being attacked by a human-like Kegare. Rokuro intervenes and hits the Kegare in the face, but this time he couldn't destroy it. Benio and Rokuro team up to exorcise it. In the Seika dormitory, Seijin Amawaka appears. He comes to investigate the Kegare corruption. This is a phenomenon that happens when people who have powerful spell power become a Kegare for some reason. But he also comes to clean his apprentice's mess. He goes to Magano to help Rokuro and Benio. He purifies the Kegare with one hit, Tiger Strike. Kagetsuchi with an arm that looks like Rokuro's, except for the fact that it is white. Seijin is Mayura's father and one of the 12 guardians. He is also the master of Rokuro and Ryogo, so he challenges Rokuro to fight him. The teacher versus the student. Seijin attacks Rokuro with the air Fesher bullet, but the power is insane. Rokuro tries to close that difference by using a huge rock. But with one little rock, Seijin destroys it. Seijin tells Benio that the Hinatsuki tragedy was not the result of Kegare. Rokuro killed the trainees himself. After that, he turns back to Rokuro and informs him that one of his victims, Yudo, is Benio's brother. Benio is shocked and asks Rokuro if it is true, and he admits everything to her. But, like any story, there is always more than one side. Seijin tries to explain, but someone interrupts him, Yudo. Rokuro sees Yudo and is immediately as angry as anyone can be. He charges to attack him, but Yudo ties him with a bandage, without using a talisman. Yudo and Seijin recall what happened 2 years ago. Yudo performed a ritual that turned his friends into Kegare. The ritual succeeded, and the people who weren't with Yudo were eaten by those Kegare. So, Rokuro decided to stop them by killing them. Back to the present, Seijin explains to Benio that what Yudo did is forbidden, that what he performed on his friends is one of the darkest rituals. And of course, she still cannot believe that. Benio's dream is crushed when Yudo tells her that he never respected her as an exorcist. Filled with anger, Rokuro cuts the bandages and attacks Yudo with his demonic arm. But this time, it appeared without using any talisman. But even with all that power, Rokuro is no match for Yudo. He stops him with one finger using a similar demonic arm. The fight continues. Rokuro is looking like a monster and Yudo is very calm. Rokuro charges and Yudo throws him back, again and again. So, Benio decides to intervene between them and Rokuro hits her, bringing him back to reality. Yudo disappears after saying that Rokuro's sin is not for killing his companions, but for lack of commitment to become truly powerful. Rokuro and Benio recognize how weak they are and promise each other to become stronger. Their first stop is Seijin. They ask him to train them, but he refuses, so they go back home. A few days later, Subaru Maichima visits Rokuro and Benio in their home. She is Benio's master. She is also one of the 12 guardians. She is accompanied by a weird-looking creature called Tatara, Subaru's Shikigami. Rokuro and Benio ask Subaru to train them, but she sent them on a wild goose chase instead. Suddenly, a Kegare appears and tries to create a gate from Magano to enter the reality realm. Rokuro and Benio summon their weapons to fight. Unfortunately, Benio's arm weapon doesn't obey him. He goes mad and starts to attack Benio. To fix this, Benio uses a tranquility talisman to calm down his weapon, but it drains her spell power. Now to the real problem. Countless Kegare surround them and Rokuro attacks them to protect Benio, who cannot fight. Subaru intervenes and exorcises the Kegare with one hit each. They are still surrounded by a huge number of Kegare. Subaru summons 2 guns using her technique, Star Empress Master Talisman, and starts shooting all the remaining Kegare. Then, she brings bigger guns. Using a shotgun and a machine gun, she exorcises a lot of the Kegare at once. Tatara has the power of Totem, the Flying Serpent, which is the most violent and chaotic power of the 12 Guardians. While Benio and Rokuro are following Subaru's instructions, they saw a Magano torn. An octopus-like Kegare appears. Rokuro uses the air Fisher bullet technique to attack it. Benio uses the Shores of Enlightenment dance, but nothing works on that thing. The octopus releases black ink into the air. Now, Rokuro and Benio are blind to its attacks, forcing them to switch to the defensive. They barely avoid the attacks, but they find a way to anticipate it. So, they start to predict each other's thoughts. Rokuro makes the first hit with his weapon, then Benio attacks with her swords. Then they attack one point together and destroy the Kegare. But they realize that it was a fake, created by Subaru to tighten the bond between them. Benio goes out for a run. She finds a Kegare and decides to purify it. There were 3 huge Kegare. Suddenly, someone comes and destroys them. Kamui appears looking for the twin star exorcists, and he gives her 10 seconds to choose what to decide. Hearing those words, she realizes that Kamui is the one that killed her parents. Blinded by anger, she rushes to attack. He dodges all of her attacks easily and even destroys her sword with his bare hands. He kicks her in the face, breaking her mask and throwing her away. Benio is helpless as Kamui puts his foot on her head. She can't avenge the death of her parents, and she will die the same way. Rokuro appears and punches Kamui but has no effect on him. Benio is hurt and Kamui is having a good time. He is a Bessar, a Kegger that consume too much spell power to the point where they evolve to a superior class of Kegger. An inferior class Kegger attacks Kamui and Benio, and Rokuro use this opportunity to run away and leave Magano. Rokuro uses the talisman to heal Benio, and she tells him about the incident where Kamui killed her parents. This reminds Rokuro of how his life fell apart after what happened 2 years ago. So, he goes to Magano again to face Kamui. He attacks him, but Kamui stops all of his punches. Finally, he lands the first powerful punch, but it's not enough. Kamui gives Rokuro the chance to choose: continue to fight and die, or surrender and leave. This is his hobby. Kamui gives people choices when they are facing death to see how they will react. Also, Kamui finally remembers Benio. 6 years ago, he gave her the chance to choose between her father and her mother. When she couldn't choose because she was terrified, he asked her parents whether he should spare their lives or that of their daughter, and they chose to sacrifice themselves so that Benio can live. Rokuro snaps when he heard this. He jumps at Kamui, hitting him again and again. Kamui is using his hand as a shield. For the first time, Rokuro lands a punch that throws Kamui away. Kamui uses a cursed talisman to equip armor to his feet and attacks Rokuro, sending him away. He wants to end Rokuro, but Benio appears. She decided to enter Magano again after seeing Rokuro's bravery. She uses a new technique, Dance of the Tiger Lily, on the white path, making her even faster than before. Unfortunately, she still cannot defeat Kamui, but she is not giving up. She strikes again, but one hit from his armor throws her away and Rokuro saves her. Rokuro and Benio combine their power, her sword synchronized with his demonic right arm. Her sword becomes huge and filled with spell power. They attack, but all of that power only makes Kamui lose 1 foot. Kamui retreats as Rokuro and Benio are exhausted with Aram.
And I'm pretty sure that you are.